In Boston, Massachusetts, winter mornings were cruel. Snow clung to the sidewalks, and the wind sliced through layers of clothing. Most people hurried past, their faces hidden behind scarves, eager to get indoors. But on the corner of Fulton Street, a boy sat shivering. He couldn't have been more than 9 years old. His coat was torn, his jeans too thin, and on his feet, nothing. Just bare, red, swollen toes pressed against the frozen ground. His name was Ethan Parker. Most people glanced at him and quickly looked away. Some shook their heads. A few muttered, "Where are his parents?" But no one stopped. Then came Sarah Miller, a young college student on her way to class. She noticed Ethan hugging his knees, trying to warm himself. Something in her chest tightened. She bent down. "Hey, sweetheart. Where are your shoes?" Ethan's eyes flickered with shame. "Don't have any." Her heart sank. "And where's your mom or dad?" he whispered. "It's just me." Sarah hesitated. She was late for class, juggling a heavy backpack and her own struggles with bills. But as she looked at Ethan's trembling body, she thought of her younger brother back home. Without another word, she removed her own boots. She wore thick socks underneath, enough to survive the short walk to campus. Gently, she slipped the boots onto Ethan's feet. "They're a little big," she said with a smile. "But warm is better than nothing." Ethan stared at her in disbelief. Tears welled in his eyes. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because no child should be barefoot in the snow," Sarah answered. Sarah didn't stop there. That evening, she returned with a bag of food, socks, and a blanket. She sat beside Ethan, sharing sandwiches and listening to his story. His father had died when he was 6. His mother, battling addiction, had disappeared months ago. Ethan had been surviving on the streets, sometimes sleeping in a shelter when there was space, often just curling up in alleys. "I try not to ask for help," he murmured. "People don't like kids like me." Sarah shook her head. "People just forget how to see. But I see you." Over the next week, Sarah spoke to friends, professors, even her church community. At first, people were skeptical. But when they met Ethan, this fragile boy with polite manners and quiet resilience, their hearts softened. One professor donated a winter coat. A neighbor bought new sneakers. The campus cafeteria started slipping Sarah extra food trays for him. Bit by bit, Ethan began to trust. He smiled more. He laughed. He even asked Sarah to read him stories from her literature classes. One evening, sitting in the library, Ethan asked, "Do you think someone like me could ever be something?" Sarah's throat tightened. She looked into his hopeful eyes and said firmly, "Ethan, you already are something. And yes, you can be anything." For the first time in years, Ethan believed it. Winter dragged on, but Ethan's life slowly began to change. With Sarah by his side, he wasn't invisible anymore. She helped him register at a local shelter for minors, ensuring he had a bed most nights. But Sarah wasn't satisfied with temporary fixes. She wanted Ethan to have stability, a future. She began making phone calls, children's services, nonprofit organizations, even her state representative's office. Most calls ended with bureaucracy and long waiting lists. Still, Sarah refused to give up. Word about Ethan spread through Boston. A local newspaper wrote a short piece. "The boy with no shoes, a community's wake-up call." The article featured Ethan in Sarah's donated boots, smiling shyly, holding a book. Donations poured in, clothes, school supplies, even a scholarship fund. Strangers approached Ethan on the street, handing him gloves or wishing him well. For the first time in his young life, he felt seen, valued, and safe. Ethan whispered to Sarah one night. "It's like people care all of a sudden." "They always could," Sarah said gently. "They just needed a reminder." Spring came, melting the snow. Ethan stood nervously outside Jefferson Elementary, his brand new sneakers squeaking on the sidewalk. Sarah had helped him enroll, convincing the principal to give him a chance despite missing months of education. Inside, kids whispered, some curious, some unkind. But when Ethan sat down at his desk, he noticed a sticky note waiting. "You're welcome here. Let's be friends." Signed, Tyler, a boy with messy brown hair. Ethan's heart swelled. For once, he wasn't just a boy with no shoes. He was a student, a peer, a kid who belonged. That night, Ethan told Sarah about his father. "He used to tell me, shoes don't make the man, but they help him walk further. When he died, I thought I'd never walk far again." Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your father's words were right. And now you're walking again, with a whole town cheering you on." Months passed, and Ethan thrived. He caught up in school, discovered a love for drawing, and even played basketball with Tyler after class. But he never forgot where he came from. At the shelter, he began helping younger kids, sharing snacks, reading stories, or simply listening. One evening, when a 6-year-old cried about missing her mom, Ethan handed her a pair of socks and said softly, "I know what it's like. But you're not alone anymore." Sarah watched from a distance, her eyes shining. The boy who once sat shivering barefoot was now becoming a source of warmth for others. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Sarah surprised Ethan with a small wrapped box. Inside lay a brand new pair of leather shoes, polished and sturdy. Ethan touched them reverently. "They're amazing. They're more than shoes," Sarah said. "They're a symbol of how far you've come, and how far you'll go." Ethan slipped them on, tears blurring his vision. "I'll never forget what you did for me. Ever." Sarah smiled. "Then promise me this. When you see someone else without shoes, without hope, you'll be the one to stop." "I promise," Ethan whispered. 10 years later, Ethan Parker walked across the graduation stage at Boston University. His tassel swung in the breeze as he shook hands with the dean. In the audience, Sarah cheered the loudest, tears streaming down her face. Ethan wasn't just a graduate. He was the founder of a nonprofit called Shoes of Hope, providing footwear and support for homeless children across the country. Reporters often asked him what inspired his mission. Ethan always gave the same answer. "One winter day, when I had nothing, a young woman gave me her boots. She lit a spark of hope inside me. I decided to spend my life passing that spark on." The child with no shoes reminds us that compassion can rewrite a person's story. Sometimes it takes only one act of kindness, a pair of shoes, a meal, a listening ear, to transform despair into possibility. For Ethan, shoes became more than leather and laces. They became a symbol of dignity, belonging, and hope. And for Sarah, giving away her boots became the start of a chain reaction that touched countless lives. Because kindness, like shoes, was made for walking, and when passed on, it carries humanity further than we ever imagined.